Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me for the presentation this morning. We're going to take a high-level look at the Sage Intacct solution. Let me make a quick introduction of myself. My name is Adam Westgradis. I have perhaps worked with some of you on this call, others maybe not, but have been with DWD for over a decade now, probably going on 12 years. I'm a CPA by background, but work particularly with the accounting technology solutions. Two other folks I'd like to introduce. Con Skembos is our account manager here, so he can help answer questions that may arise either in terms of the product or how Sage licensing works, or if you want to add a module or a user or those types of things, he's able to help facilitate that. Also, Sherry Simmerman as well is coordinating the webinar, so if there are any questions submitted or things submitted through the chat box, you may chime in here. But we're all available for contact, and our direct phone numbers are there and emails as well if any questions arise. So let's talk about our material here. What we're seeing with a lot of the organizations that we work with is a trend towards moving towards cloud solutions. And in the practical space out in the world, there's a lot of other systems that feed into the general ledger. And so you might have a CRM system where things like donations or grants are coming in. You might have a outside payroll system where you want the finalized payroll journal entry to be fed into the general ledger. Maybe you have expense systems that employees need to track their mileage and meals and travel and those types of things, or billing systems. For those that are in the behavioral health space, for example. Lots of different things that can feed into a cloud solution. And the backbone is really Sage Intacct. And one of the beauties of Sage Intacct is, from a technical standpoint, it has an open API infrastructure. So it can talk seamlessly with other cloud solutions. So let's go ahead and dive into the software here to give an overview. I'll toggle here to the software itself. And the first time you're seeing this, a couple of things right out of the gate. You'll notice up at the top, I literally just go to a web address, log in with my email, and everything is ready to go. Updates are automatic. The next time you log in, you're always on the latest, greatest version. Things like backups, disaster recovery, system security, all of that is baked into the platform itself. And there are multiple data centers here in the US, and Sage maintains that process. So again, everything is included as a part of core accounting functionality, just kind of working from the way down. One of the big improvements in Sage Intacct over legacy systems is these dashboard capabilities. So you kind of have this canvas here. And this is what we call a highly configurable dashboard. Literally, you can drag and drop things on the screen. You can pin your own widgets, whether it's KPIs, reports, charts, and graphs. Everything is derived from financial statements, so you can pin your own. You can have multiple dashboards in the system. So maybe you have someone like a department head or a grant manager that you want them to see just particular information or more granular information. You're able to set those up. And the security permissions revolve around not only what areas of the software I can access, but perhaps what department codes I have access to. So if Adam should only see one area, that's all I can see when I log into the system. And for the charts and reports and graphs and the dashboards I have access to, they all reflect the security permissions. So at this point, I am at the highest level in the system. Meaning I'm seeing everything across the entire organization here. If there's a situation where I've got multiple companies, or maybe I have a foundation or different organizations that kind of split apart, I can have up to 1,000 companies under one umbrella within Sage Intacct. Okay, so here I'm looking at all the different components in the system. I can see that I've got a revenue expense report split out by maybe different departments or program areas. Every number that you see in blue is drillable and hyperlink enabled to find out more information. Any report can be turned into a chart and graph. So maybe I have something over here where I want to see budget to actual for the month, and maybe I'm looking and reviewing at the month of June here. I can drill into that information, literally just click on that bar chart, takes me directly to that month's financial statement. Again, all of the underlying numbers are blue and drillable for more information. So if I have a question on a certain account, I can drill into that $66,000, and now I'm at what we call source level transactions. So in this case, I can see I've got 1 accounts payable bill and 4 journal entries. Okay, these are all drillable as well. And now we're directly into the screen as that transaction was entered and posted in the system. So maybe has a little bit different look and feel than older systems here, but I've got some information here at the top to see what's been paid. Has it been paid in full? I've got a hyperlink to the payment method, so whether it was by paper check, ACH, credit card, auto withdrawal out of the bank, those are all available. In this case, I've drilled down on accounts payable bill, so I've got information like the bill number, if there were terms. Maybe I need to have a date out here that it needs to be included in the particular check run. I can timestamp that. Attachments are incorporated and available in the system as well. So in this case, it had an invoice directly attached in the system. As long as it is a Windows-based file that will render in the browser, it will pull up. If I attach something like Word or Excel, it'll download locally for me to interact with, just like any other online program. It is as simple as drag and drop in terms of adding attachments to the system. So I'm grabbing multiples here and just release it on the screen. Kind of flashes green now. Now those are all attached to this transaction. And I can see multiple ones. So maybe I have a receipt that went along with that. Okay. And that's pervasive throughout the system. So whether it's journal entries, accounts payable bills, purchase orders, maybe it's contracts on a vendor or grant, this paperclip functionality appears throughout the system. Now, for several of you on the call, you might be familiar with the MIP system, and this is where our MIP users upgrading to Sage Intacct will feel really at home. This system uses, like MIP, a table-driven chart of accounts. So you can have multiple fields in the transaction grid to be able to tag transactions and slice and dice financial statements. So here I've got turned on my main base general ledger account. I'm tracking by different departments, maybe different locations. Maybe I've got grants or projects that I'm tracking, FASB 117, restricted funds, and so forth. And if you're familiar with distribution codes, you can also break down costs using allocations at even the line level. So I can have this $5,000 split out on a rate table behind the scenes. One quick win in comparison to maybe some other systems is Sage makes it extremely easy to correct transactions. So you'll notice up here at the top, there are various buttons. And as long as the month hasn't been closed and my permissions allow for this, I'm able to come up and reclassify a transaction. So I don't have to do a reversal. I don't have to do an appending entry. Again, as long as the month is still open and hasn't been closed, I can literally come out and change the internal account coding. Now, in this case, the dollar amounts can't be changed because the payment has already been sent out. But if it hasn't been sent out, I'd be able to make that modification as well. And then lastly, I'd like to introduce a feature that's very unique to Sage. Down here in the lower left, they call this Collaborate. I call it the Instant Messenger. But on a lot of the transaction screens or primary list screens like vendors, customers, this kind of appears at the bottom. This is a tool to be able to get communications directly in the system. So I can come out and tag another individual, and because this is associated with my email, they will get an email notification with that comment and a hyperlink to whatever screen that I'm tagged on to take action on. And the goal there is to try to get communications more efficient, more timely, and out of email where we've got a bunch of different floating parts all captured and documented in one place. Okay. So that's kind of a little bit of the lay of the land, and again, feels very familiar for MIP customers with the table-driven chart of accounts, which I'll talk more about. There is a full audit trail out here, so you can see who created the transaction, when it was posted, and if there were any approvals that it went through. So whether it was a requisition or an AP bill, If it needed to go through routing to get approved and posted, you can have that in the audit trail as well. So bringing that kind of full circle, we literally got down to that level of detail in 3 clicks directly from the dashboard. So that just shows the power of the system. There are all different types of reporting you can have out here. So you can see your cash trend lines. You can drill down on those to see your balance. As a department manager, you could maybe have just certain rows that you're responsible for and whether you're over and under budget, maybe the various revenue sources, how you're funded. And then over here, I can track even something a little bit more unique, non-financial metrics. We call these statistical accounts, but maybe there's information from a billing system or number of units that you want to track month by month and either do calculations on what's my average expense per visit or the number of FTEs in a department or whatever it might be. I can pull that information and create reports and graphs off of that. I can also use it in ratio analysis. And then kind of continuing on the tour here, down at the bottom, I've got some widgets pinned to my main screen that require me to take action. So in this case, I've got purchasing transactions that are waiting to be approved. I've got some journal entries. So maybe I've got a staff account that prepared something and it's submitted to the controller, or I've imported the payroll journal entry, for example. Anytime I click on the little magnifying glass here, it'll take me to the outstanding list of items that are in my queue. So in this case, I've got 3 purchase orders that need approved. I can approve them all in bulk. I can drill down and see information, or I could say, you know what, there needs to be something corrected here, and then the person that submitted this will receive an email back with whatever comments I have out here. So again, it streamlines those communications, making them very efficient directly in the system. So that's kind of the dashboard functionality. Now up here at the top, any of the dimensions that I have turned on, I can filter the entire dashboard. So maybe I say I only want to look at just the counseling services. I can change that and say apply. All the widgets, all the reports, all the charts and graphs are going to refresh in real time. Maybe I want to look at just a particular location. So I'm looking at a particular county, for example. Maybe I've got just a particular funding source that I want to hone in on. I can have up to 3 dimensions as filters up here at the top to slice and dice the data. Now, you can have more granular dashboards as well. So maybe there's something like this where I've got charts and graphs on the left-hand side, more detailed reports. I can have color highlighting here so things stand out. I can have indicators on reports to make it more visually appealing and easier to interpret. And there's one dashboard in particular that I like to highlight, and that is the month close process. We have heard customers report coming off of older systems that they can close the books in half the amount of time with Sage Intacct. And one of the features they have out here that I like are the ability to use checklists. So I can see kind of what months have been closed. I can see that there are comments out here that maybe I need to keep my eye on as the billboard. But out here, I can see, okay, what month are we working on? So April is still open in this case. I can come out and I can assign other users certain tasks, and they can come out, mark them as completed. They can say when they completed them. They can add any supplemental attachments or comments to this. And so trying to get those lists out of Word or Excel or somewhere else, each user can access this checklist. And you can have checklists for any number of things. There's not a limit that you need. It could be for onboarding a new vendor. It could be for month close. It could be for inputting the budget, whatever makes sense. You're able to build those out in the system. So a lot of functionality. So let's take a look at kind of the guts of the system here. You've got a favorites menu up here at the top. So any menu item can be pinned. When I say the system is highly configurable, literally, I just drag and drop things in different orders. I've got bookmarks over here on the right-hand side. So if I want to spell out kind of a procedural guide, or maybe I'm working on a particular screen or transaction, and I want to just pin it and come back to it later, I'm able to do that. All of these are drag and drop enabled. I can also relabel those. And then one of the more powerful things within Sage Intacct is the ability to use the universal search. So maybe I'm trying to look up all transactions for a certain vendor, or maybe I only recall a dollar amount. I'm able to search the entire database or platform with those. And maybe I have an idea that, it's only an AP bill, or maybe it's in a general ledger area. I could search just those to speed up the search, but very powerful search functionality. So the last menu item here is the application menu. And for those on this call, everything, if you're a nonprofit, everything from the grants menu and up is included as a part of what Sage calls core accounting. So whether you have a need for all of those, or maybe not initially, but maybe want to grow into that, like purchasing, for example, is a common one, you're able to utilize that at no additional cost within the Sage Intacct software. There are certainly other modules that are more a la carte that could be added if you have that need. So if you need to track any type of inventory, fixed assets is a common one that we see with our nonprofits, maybe even allocation management, where it goes back and allocates management and overhead costs at month end. You're able to do that. So a lot of things are available here as your organization scales and needs more power. So the system comes with the report builder built in. Let me just show some of the setup. So I've mentioned, again, Sage Intacct uses a table-driven chart of accounts, which are dimensions, and these can be set up as ways to slice and dice the data. So you'll notice here I don't have them all turned on, but I'm tracking things like grants, I'm tracking employees or clinicians, I'm tracking different departments. And one thing that is unique to this system is I can incorporate what are called parent-child relationships. So I might have a subset of codes that roll up into a higher level, and from a security standpoint, I could say a certain user has access to all social service departments or programs, and they would see the orange dot and any green dot activity underneath of that. Okay, and I could have several layers deep here. The other thing is the report writer is customizable enough that I could come out and run a report where I cherry pick and say I want code 110, 130, 220, and just run a report on a filter like that, and that's totally okay as well. So I can do that at departments. I can do that for employees, and this one will show several layers deep. So if I'm routing things throughout the organization, it might say, route to Blake Miller here for the manager. Okay. I can track grants, and grants are kind of a unique one because I can store a lot more information related to those. So I'll give you an example of that. I can have, federal grants, state grants, local grants. I can identify how they roll up into a higher billing sequence as an example. But if we take a look at a grant code, I can assign who's responsible for that grant. I can assign what the reporting dates are. Is it active, or is it been completed? So maybe it's a grant that gets renewed next year. I can have transaction rules associated with that grant or project. There are revenue recognition schedules that can be set up. So maybe you have a grant that's a lump sum and it needs to be spread out 1/12 over the course of the year. I can set up revenue recognition schedules for that, or maybe there are certain milestones or dates that indicate revenue recognition. There are billing capabilities out here. So if you have something like a drawdown grant and you say, hey, here's all the expenses that were for the last month, we need to go ahead and bill it and draw down, the system will have the ability to capture all tag transactions to that grant or funding source and pull them into a drawdown or a billable grant. I can store CFA information for federal grants. I can have default dimensions. So I can say every time this code is used, it always goes to this department, this location, and maybe this restriction code. And again, I can also put in attachment numbers or attachments as well. So anything that I want to pertain as supporting documentation, that I'm able to incorporate. The system has some reporting capabilities without even having to run a report, so I can see how much I've collected or recognized the revenue, how many expenses have I incurred against that grant. So there are some additional tabs out here to store other information. And I'd be remiss to point out if there is information that isn't on one of the default tabs, I'm able to use user-defined fields and collect other or additional information. So let's take a look at running some reports. The system comes with over 150 reports out of the box, and that's in all of the application areas. So whether it's in accounts payable or general ledger, you can kind of see here, I can either go through the report menu, or within each section, there are reports over here on the right-hand side that I can play or run. I'm a big proponent of using favorites. So the ones that have the little stars next to them are ones that I use most frequently. That puts it on my favorites tab. And now these are the 10 of 20 reports that I run most often. And let's go ahead and look at the report writer. It's all in the browser. So again, I'm not having to dump as many things out to Excel or use a different reporting tool. It's all embedded. And to run reports, it literally just runs in the browser. So I can see here's a basic income statement. I've got actuals and comparing it to a budget. I've got a budget variance. Again, every number that is shown here in blue is drillable. You have full control over the account titles, the account numbers. You can also have subsections on reports, and you can have as several layers deep there, and I can control what those are called and labeled as well. And I can expand and collapse those sections on the fly. Those then also become drillable numbers. Every report can be exported to Excel, printed as a PDF, or emailed to even someone else that doesn't log into the system as an attachment via PDF or Excel. So everything is point and click driven. So if I want to rearrange things on a report, I literally just drag and drop, or I can add sections to the body of the report. So maybe I want number of hours, a non-financial metric, I could add that in. To add columns to the body of the report, or slice and dice it by any of my dimensions, it's all point and click. So it's a matter of coming out and adding columns to the left or the right. Just as a quick example, when I drill into a particular column, I can see the date ranges that it's referencing before I even run the report. I can say I want to reference last year activity, 2 years prior. So I have comparative financial reports coming directly out of the system. But there's a unique feature called expand by, and I can come out and any of those dimensions that I've enabled, I can slice and dice the table or the report just like a pivot table. So maybe I say I want to see things by department level. Literally with that one change, it takes that actual column and now creates a real wide report where I've got all of my departments or programs side by side, automatically creates a total column for me, and still retain the budget and the overall variance. Again, every number here that I see appears in blue. I could very easily take that report and say, you know what, I don't want to slice and dice it by one of the dimensions. Maybe I want to see it over a time period. So I want to see it for 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, whatever it might be. I'm just doing a pivot table here, and now I've got side-by-side monthly financials. Okay. I can do the freeze panes like I do in Excel, so I can do the infinite scroll up and down, left and right, and the rows on the left-hand side stay in place. Okay. So there's a lot more functionality out here, filtering, formatting fields, adding in notes. The last thing I'd like to point out is any report can be added to a dashboard. You can have it set up on a schedule automatically. So if you said every second Thursday of the month, I want reports to be sent out to certain managers, I can do that. And then last but not least, you can have multiple reports assigned to a report group. And so at month end, when I'm preparing the financial packet, instead of having to call up each report, I just call up the report group, update the date in one place, and all the reports will run in the background for me that I've incorporated. So a lot of capabilities there. Let me show you one other report that's kind of unique for those that have grants. You're able to do grant reporting out of this system, and grants can be at the row level. So I can see here's all the grants that I've got, and I can see their award or budget amount, what they've actually spent, just kind of bird's eye view going down the list. But within grants in particular, I can have different date ranges at the row level. So maybe I have a grant that spans 2 years that doesn't coincide with my fiscal year end, or maybe I've got a different report with a different time frame. I'm able to see that all on one report here. I can even drill and make changes to the grant if I need to on the fly from the report. So that's kind of a high level overview. As I get down into the more transaction-based modules like General Ledger, certainly I can import transactions. That's a big feature. I do not have to have any type of a definition file to import. When I import transactions here, it'll provide a template for me out of the gate. So I don't need to be a technical guru to do that. I can do recurring transactions, statistical journal transactions, for example. I can run allocations at month end. All of you are probably familiar with maybe more detailed transaction reports, like a posted transaction report. That would be called the general ledger, and I'm able to get more granular information there. Let me show kind of two other things here, and then we'll kind of wrap up. It's a fast overview here. You can certainly navigate through the menu, and there's kind of a lot of items here, but on every screen there is a workflow, or I call them the swim lanes, where you can kind of click through and follow the steps that need to be completed. But you'll notice here, just in accounts payable alone, you can have transactions that are entered. Maybe they need to be routed for approvals, whether that's someone in accounting or a department manager. You can have e-check signers come into the system and approve the next check run. So there are steps along the way that you can incorporate other users to be able to process the transactions quickly and efficiently. And the other area that we see a lot of use in is in purchasing. If you don't use purchase orders today or requisitions, just know that that's something you could grow into. This feeds directly into the accounts payable module, and you can have end users come out and start a basic requisition, or maybe I have maintenance folks or IT folks that need to start that, and it needs to go through an approval process. There's a whole bunch of setup that can occur behind the scenes to make things work efficiently in your organization. Okay. So again, everything from the grants module and up is included as a part of core accounting in Sage. Okay. There are a couple of a la carte modules that we see out here. One that I do like to point out is fixed assets. It's not uncommon that maybe that's used in the legacy system, and you can do all of your depreciation schedules here. But one thing I do like to point out is this system will also allow you to track construction in progress projects. So maybe you're doing a renovation, maybe you're building a new location. You can incorporate and capture those expenses as they're coming in through accounts payable, assign them to a project, and then whenever that asset is finished or ready to be placed in service, you're able to capture those expenses and track budget and other things against it. But one of the things I like about the fixed asset module in particular is, since it talks to purchasing and accounts payable, when I drill down on an asset, it'll have a hyperlink to any of the AP bills that rolled into that asset. So whether it was a construction in progress or a standalone asset, those are all, just a click away to monitor that information. So that's a pretty quick overview. There's a lot more information I could share, but this was just meant to be kind of high-level flyover. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat or comments, but feel free to submit if there's anything. I am going to toggle back just to kind of wrap up here for to be respectful of people's times. One of the reasons we're having these educational webinars is to create awareness, obviously, about Sage Intacct, but also to share that this time of year in particular, through the end of September, is one of the optimal times to consider upgrading, as there are promotions going on that Sage offers customers. So right now, for example, some of the nonprofits we work with are trying to get things lined up for maybe a January 1 project for 2025, or even as far out as July 2025. We have some of those already scheduled. And so this gives you a long enough runway in your timeline to get fully implemented, to get the data converted, to get your team trained, get reports built. And those are all things that we here at DJD help facilitate. Again, our contact information is there, so you're welcome to reach out to me if there are more questions related to the product, or you want to know more about what the process looks like to go through an implementation. One of the more common questions we get is, can you bring over information from MIP as an example? We can. Typically, the customer lets us know how many years of history they want to bring over, so there isn't a limit that can be brought. So we help facilitate that entire process. So again, let me take a quick peek at the questions or chat. Sherry, just confirm for me that I'm not missing. Is there anything coming through that I can help answer?
No, I don't see any questions right now.
Okay. Well, again, I appreciate everybody joining here. If you have anything that comes to mind afterwards, happy to help answer those. And thank you for attending. And with that, I'll go ahead and stop the webinar and wrap up the presentation. So again, thank you, everybody.